Welcome to Roundtable Mindset, the podcast where we seek to understand and share different perspectives in order to grow and challenge our own. And we encourage you, our guest, to do the same.
Each week, we will pick a topic to discuss, sharing our own unique thoughts and insights. There will be times when we won't agree, and let's be real, that's probably going to be most of the time, and that's okay. We feel it's important to understand that we can live in this polarized world and still respect one another and even be friends.
Well, hello and welcome back to Roundtable Mindset. This is Jamie.
And I'm Malin.
We're back for another exciting episode of Roundtable Mindset.
You haven't used that in a while, so it's kind of refreshing.
Revival. Exciting. We bring it back.
We pick the words we choose, and we choose exciting today.
Yeah, I paused for a slight second to think of something else and just... it's a rut. It's the comfortable place to drive my car is in the exciting lane.
I wish I had something to say to that, but I don't. Okay. So how's life been treating you?
Oh, life is good. Life is good. Had some shifting in my household. So all of you who have been listening for a little bit now don't have to hear about empty nesting anymore. My girl moved back in for a little bit. So reset and reground. And so I'm not an empty nester anymore. That's interesting.
So wait a minute. So you transitioned, you went through the heartache, you went through the pain, you've started organizing, you've done spring cleaning, you've made room for you and Doyle, you've started utilizing both spaces of the bedrooms. And now, again, not that she's not welcome, but I'm just trying to make sure I'm following along. So now she's coming back and you have to undo some of that, or no?
So now it's a good thing that I did some of that because at least there's space and it's a ready environment. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it, but I guess part of me is just really happy that she felt safe enough to do that home is still the place where we come back and reset and reground and restart. And so I'm grateful for that. So that's where I'm at today.
It's kind of funny because we've told all of our kids, go out into the world and explore, go and take a risk because you can always come back home, to your point, right? You can always come back home, reground yourself, get back up on your feet or whatever it is, or, clean up the wounds of life a little bit. But we've always told all of our kids, don't be afraid to try something because you can always come back home. Home will be here for you. So it's kind of interesting that you're kind of living, that scenario out right in front of all of our eyes. I will be curious, though, to see how the transition, because I've seen the transition with you when they left, and I'm wondering if it's an easier transition for them to come back or if it's going to be a difficult transition back to having one of them living underneath your roof.
Well, so far, even just my perspective in having her back is a little bit different than I think it was when she left, because it's like all these months she's kind of been out on her own and doing her own thing. And I know and trust that she can do that. So it's like I don't have to, I feel a little freedom in that still, that, she's going to be fine. And it's not like adding anything to my plate as far as responsibility or anything like that goes. But I'm glad to be that person for her. I'm glad to be that safe haven where, she can come back and I can support her as she's just kind of regrouping and figuring out what's next. So.
And I can't help but reflect a couple episodes ago, you made the comment that these dishes were just showing up in your sink. And I think I made a comment like, would it kill you to rinse a sink or rinse a dish off in the sink? I might have a little bit more merit behind that now.
Yeah. Well,
at least rinse your dishes.
Well, and truthfully, you don't, there's some hard lines, there's some things that there's some expectations, and, tried to really set it up for her, even like thinking about getting a roommate again in the future. Like, it's important for them to be able to express their expectations and you to do the same. And this is what a healthy living situation can look like. And so I think we've hammered out the dish situation for at least the honeymoon period. We'll see.
On to another thing now. No, it's so funny because, we're kind of in the space at our house where we call it the season of spend. I think I've mentioned that before. Like all of our birthdays and anniversaries and major holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, it all falls from like November timeframe into February. And so we've always called that our season of spend because throughout the rest of the year, there's really no other main events or holidays really for the families to celebrate. And so we just concluded that. But this year we're starting to focus on my daughter's graduation party. So we're starting to get into the throes of that. And that's fun. That's exciting to kind of see her put her stamp on it. She's asking us, well, how should we decorate and what do we need for food? And my wife and I keep, we help her with suggestions, but we keep coming back and saying, well, this is your party. What do you want? What do you want to get out of it? What are some of your favorite foods and snacks? And so it's just been fun to start having those thoughts and organizations. And we got our save the dates out there. And so it's just a matter of starting to pull all these pieces together. We're hosting it in our garage for right now. So the preparation of the garage is going to be starting, painting of the walls. We're putting up screens. We're sweeping.
Ooh. Are you painting over the sports logo that's in your garage that makes me want to cry every time I see it?
Yes, we are. My son is bound and determined to put Nebraska Cornhuskers up. So we are definitely going to be doing some remodeling, although the sports emblem will not be there until after graduation. So.
Oh, that's probably wise. Wise.
We are just beginning that process, and I can understand that this will probably be a subject that I bring up multiple times until it happens. So everyone listening, buckle up because this will not be the last time you hear me talk about this party we're putting together. But we're all really excited to kind of get started. So
yeah, that's fun. That's fun. Oh, what is it that they said in Steel Magnolias? Time marches on, and before you know it, it's marching across your face. That's kind of what it feels like sometimes, but it's good.
That is so good. All right. Well, I have a little bit of a food for thought discussion to kind of crack open and play around with for a little bit. We asked this question back on our social medias on Facebook. Oh, it's been a couple weeks now. Actually, it might be closer to a month. And the question that we had was, what is the difference between being weird and being unique?
I don't know, Malin. What is the difference? I'm curious your take on this because I feel like everybody's going to know my take on this. So I'm curious what your take is.
Well, and, I've had a lot longer time to reflect on this. And we also have some people on Facebook that also weighed in. So I'll get to that in a little bit. But for my personal stance on this, I think it's all about, and it's going to be such a tired answer, but I don't care. I'm going to use it. It's all about perspective, I think, how you perceive one over the other. When we were kids, being weird was a negative. Remember, like, oh, he's weird or she's weird or don't talk to them. They're weird. And weird could be a variety of things. Your economic stance in society, even as a kid that exists, right? Like, oh, you don't wear brand name clothes, or, oh, your house might be in some place that's not desirable, or you may be caught having at the time a hobby that nobody really else does at the time. Well, you're weird. It's just odd behavior. It's weird. Versus unique, which was one of a kind, right? So when you look at the perspective, for me growing up, one was always negative and the other one was always positive. And so when I first asked this question, I fell into my old trap too of saying, well, one's negative, one's positive. And so I want to be unique more than I want to be weird. Fast forward in today's society and you look across the spectrum now, and people almost want to be weird, right? Like it's no longer, I mean, I think if you put these two up together, they're probably more similar now than they were, 20, 25 years ago. But even now, I see a real big push for people to be, I'm using air quotes, weird more than people talk about, hey, I want to be unique. So that's kind of where I'm at so far. I think they're at this point probably kissing cousins, but I think being weird is a little bit more of a desirable state than being unique at this point.
Well, and I think I have a similar thought,
What?
actually.
What?
Right? I was going to say unique is weird and weird is unique. Because if you think about it, I feel like it's in the eye of the viewer to decide. And for me, that challenge is always, it's like unique is a strength-based way of saying that's weird. And if you define weird, and I didn't look this up, so this is just Jamie Merriam-Webster hybrid hack, okay?
Published 2024. Okay, go ahead.
Published 2 seconds ago. In my opinion, the word weird is really about what is out of your normal. What is out of what you view as weird is based on your own culture, your own experiences, your own family upbringing, whatever, right? And so to call something weird feels super judgmental. And it is, in a positive or a negative way. That's judgment. That's me deciding based on what I've experienced that this is weird or this is out of the norm. And so those two things cross over. What I feel like is happening, and we kind of talked, it's funny because we talked about absolute truths, right? And I feel like this kind of blends over into that because I feel like we have more capacity to accept and I'm air quoting for those listeners because Malin can see it, but I'm the weird. There's more capacity for the weird. You know what I mean? I think that the beauty in social media, the beauty in film, the beauty in the access that we have to other people has made weird less weird. and so it's kind of I don't know, I see that as a really positive thing because as a kid I was weird. And now I don't feel so weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and don't you think, though, that even with everything we've talked about, don't you think when you just hear the word weird versus unique, weird has an edge to it? At least it does for me. Like when I hear the word unique, I've said it before, like it's a one of a kind. It's something you don't see every day. Weird to me could be the same thing, but I hear it as there's an implied edge to it. So you may be doing something that's unique or one of a kind, but it has a slant to it that either you are making it, I can't use any other word besides weird, like you're making it weird, or other people that are looking at you because it's so odd and so different. That's the best that I can articulate right now, is that weird to me just has this sound of there's an edge to it more than just unique. And so maybe it's the edginess of that word that is making it more sociably sought after than the word unique. Because at this point, I personally would almost interchange both of them. I think if I have to look internally to say why would I use unique versus weird? Weird is a behavior question that I would use to describe somebody's uniqueness, whereas unique would be a inanimate object would be unique. But that's just how I would decide to use it. So I'll open up publish my Merriam-Webster dictionary and say that would be how I would do it.
Well, and I feel like the edge of the word weird has shifted over time. Like I don't know that it has as much edge. And I think it's one of the beautiful things about the English language. There's a guy on TikTok that I follow who talks a lot about like words and English and different things about that, like spelling and stuff like that. And it does always amaze me if you think about how a word was used 50 years ago as compared to today. And my son on a regular basis says, "Mom, don't make it weird." I feel like I do feel like there's some shifting in what weird is, and it's based on the way we use the word. So maybe I'm just way more in touch with the youth, Malin, and that's why weird doesn't have an edge to me. I don't know.
What a weird
I'm
comment
putting myself out.
What a weird.
Very hopeful is what that is. It's not weird. It's hopeful.
Well, I do want to give a little bit of recognition to those that have taken the time to answer our questions out on Facebook. And so I just want to share these with you. I don't know if you've had a chance to see them or not, but We've had two fellow podcasters kind of weigh in on there. So we have the Josh and Polly show. They weighed in and said, nobody is unique. Everyone is just weird. Being unique is like having a genius idea.
So almost magnifying the meaning of the two, or the difference in the two. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Going back to absolute truth, I'm cool with it. As long as you're able to articulate what it is that you mean, I think that's the important part. If unique to you is some amazing discovery or something, then I can go with that.
Yeah, I kind of took theirs as a little bit of what I was saying with the word unique, because when I read their comment, when it says unique is just having a genius idea, I thought of the Apple iPhone. Right? Like that's the first thing that jumped in my mind. The iPhone at the time was a unique product. There was no other product like it. And so that to me is more of the tangible. Like I was saying before, like I would use unique as a way to describe an inanimate object. I like what they're saying though, that everybody is just weird. Cause I do think, you've all heard the let your freak flag fly. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody has an element to weird. And I think, you know, when our parents were growing up and we were even growing up, it was keep that to yourself because that's not socially acceptable. Well, now it's almost become socially acceptable to say, show me your weirdness, right? Like I'll show you my weirdness if you show me yours. And then we can maybe even bond over them and be weird together, which is a whole different dynamic.
See, I'm not going to lie. I really feel like social media is what has shifted that for me anyway. Like having more exposure to more like diverse personalities and people and freak flags means that there's less freak flags for me. You know what I mean? It's just, I think that's such a cool element of social media. I don't know. Well,
and let's not lie. Being weird and being a little bit of a freak is fun. I mean, there's some happiness there, right? Like, hey, this was what makes me happy. And what better way to share that with friends? Like if they share the same kind of weirdness or freakness with you, mazel tov. Like more power to you. Have some fun with some friends.
Come gather under my freak flag.
Yeah, exactly.
See you at the pool.
See you at the pool. We also had another podcast. Ouch, was that a ghost? So this podcast also did a comment. I've had a chance to listen to both of those, just a little segue, and both of them are fantastic podcasts. I would give them each a listen to and kind of enjoy their content. But ouch, was that a ghost? They said they are both not following the societal norm, so both winning but unique. I see as trying to stand apart. Be an individual as weird. I see more an action done for others' benefit. So there, if I'm reading through that, there's a little bit of a trying to stand apart. That's the difference. Being unique, you're trying to set yourself different from other people. Maybe with weird, it's not so much. So I appreciate that perspective. And then we have another one from a listener. His name is Jim. Jim says, I think weird is quirky and not caring whether or not one conforms to societal norms. Unique doesn't necessarily have to be quirky, just special in some way.
Yeah, I like all of those. I think that be weird, keep being weird. It's my favorite.
It's my favorite too. I love being weird. So I think the bottom line for me, I think because of everything we've talked about, I would see them as getting close to being synonyms at this point. Like, I don't think there is a big chasm between being unique and being weird. So.
No, I think there used to be.
Yeah.
Especially when we were, on the playground.
That was just a couple weeks ago. What are you talking about?
Couple months ago.
Time marches on. All right. So thank you for having that conversation and that little bit of discussion around weird versus unique. I always love taking opportunity to just think through some of these different topics from time to time. So I always find a little nugget for myself.
Me too. And maybe I'm going to think of different words than weird. I think that's probably something I should do. Because I do use the word weird once in a while. I mean, I know that it's endearing, but it might really feel judgy for somebody else. So I think I'm going to find a different word. Word.
Considering our track record with the word exciting, I don't think that's going to probably happen.
Okay. Ouch. I will be so excited when I find 4 words for weird, okay?
Jamie's like, I got some words for you now. Okay. So now moving over to our main discussion.
The main
I've been
event.
sitting the main event. I've been sitting on this question and this topic for a while, and we're finally going to pull the trigger. And I think this is going to go maybe a couple different ways. At least I hope it does. But really wanted to talk to you about, Jamie, do you think that animals have souls? Do you think that our pets and companions, fur babies, what are some of the terms that they've used? Do you think when they pass on that their soul lives on? Or do you think that when they cross that rainbow bridge, it's just darkness and emptiness and nothing?
See, you threw a curveball at me right there. Because those are two different questions, my friend. I feel like, do they have souls and do they live on in the afterlife are two totally different things.
Imagine that.
By design, possibly? That's funny. As a proud pet parent, a fur mama, yes, my animals have souls. And I don't know, I guess here's the reasoning I feel that way. My daughter will tease me because I have a knack for picking out the extra. Like, I don't know what it is, but it is like the last 3 pets that I've had have all just been a little extra, very unique, a little weird, fantastic little souls. And I think that is part of, I guess that's probably the question, is what makes up a soul? You know what I mean? And I feel like our personality is part of that. And because I can see something unique about each of the animals like that I'm thinking of, I feel like that, yeah, my dog has a soul. He's a sassy little strong-willed, hard-headed puppy, but he has a soul. He's definitely unique in that way.
Well, and again, this is, I've recognized before we begin, so just indulge me, Jamie, that this is all a personal opinion, right? Like,
right.
I see it a little bit different, but I'm curious because I like to get your take on this. So I see it a little bit different. Do animals and pets have personalities? You betcha. Coming out of everywhere you can possibly look. I grew up with having dogs. I've owned cats. Haven't really had any kind of exposure to exotic pets. And we'll get into that a little bit later. When we think about, I'll just say it like spiders. I hate spiders. So tarantulas or any kind of large spiders that are pets, those of you that have them, I love that for you. I wish they were not even here on Earth. So I don't know. They don't have souls. They just are there. So that's a whole different segue. But I think for me, I think I have to look at to say there's a soul, which I threw that extra curveball into you because what would be the point of an animal having a soul if it's not there to be used after we die? Like, what would be the point of it? So then if I ask that question and I go down the path of if animals don't have souls, then how do you justify all of the personality that they have? And to me, that's a complete different perspective, almost like a persona. So each animal has their own personality. They have their own persona, if you will. They have
except for spiders.
They are just horrible creatures.
Yes, no,
not spiders. Those are void of any kind of personality.
Mark that off the list.
They don't. Never mind. I could just go. Those of you that have spiders as pets, I'm sorry. I just don't like spiders, but I enjoy that every day. I don't even know what to say now because I'm like, I feel like I have spiders on me. But no, I think there's a distinction between having a pet that has personality and a pet that has, do they love? Absolutely. Absolutely they love. Do they care for you? Are they protective? Do they make sure that we're, safe and our needs are met? Are they trainable? I mean, all these wonderful qualities. It's not that animals are not, wonderful. They truly, truly are. My question just goes to, do they have a soul? So do they exist beyond this living plane? When they die, do they live on? And that's really the heart of the question. So consciousness, yeah, I think they have consciousness. Does that consciousness exist beyond death? And that to me would be the soul. And I don't find any correlation between an animal having a soul and living on after death versus having a really amazing personality while they're here with us.
Yeah, this almost just like puts an exclamation point on the difference between like personal philosophical belief systems for you and I, right? Like, because to me, I'm like, doesn't matter. You know what I mean? But I have that same thought process about my own soul after death. Like, does it matter? If I'm dead, I won't know. And if I do know, then I find out, right? Like, so to me, it's like, it's one of the areas in my life that I can pull it back from the macro, like that I can stop thinking 10 steps down the road and just be in the here and now. And so I'm gonna love my little fur baby every day and enjoy every ounce of his personality, consciousness, or lack thereof, because sometimes there's that too, and just enjoy what he has to bring to my family and give him everything I can give him. You know, one thing though that I was thinking about as you were talking is spiders
again.
Well, no, okay, yes, again, but like thinking about like beings, creatures, and like the different capacities for personality and intention and things like that, right? Like, I mean, as humans, I like to believe that we on Earth are the highest thinking creatures that are there, right? Like we have the most intelligence and the most ability, and we can create and all of these things. Well, my dog doesn't necessarily have the ability to create, but he certainly is creative. And then you think about like other things like snakes. In my purview, and maybe someone who owns snakes can tell me something totally different. I actually feel like one of our childhood friends who had snakes would probably be very upset with me if I said this out loud, but I'm going to anyway. I feel like snakes exist to eat and procreate, right? Like it's not like there's purpose beyond that. It doesn't seem like there's purpose beyond that there isn't an ability to attach or to show love or, you know what I mean, or receive love. Whereas our dogs really can. You can tell the difference between a dog who's well loved and a dog who's been abused, for instance, you know? So does it apply to all animals? I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that. I think that there's different levels of ability, or I don't know. What do you think?
So as much as I've been dissing on spiders, I will say if it exists in one animal, I would believe it exists in all animals, which means even though we don't see it very often, because I have known a couple people who owned spiders and snakes, and they talk about their pet like we would be talking about a dog or a cat. And I remember it was very different for me. See, I was going to use the word weird, but I'm trying to use a different word. It was very different for me to hear them talk because I couldn't relate, because I have a hang up with spiders. I have a hang up with snakes. So because of my bias to those animals, I'm already saying they are lower quality than a dog or a cat. But for these pet owners, the way you hear them talk about them, they have personality. They have this connection and they have this ability to communicate with one another, although it may not be how we recognize with like a dog or a cat. So what I'm about to say is I do have to apply this, I think, on some level, all of the traits that we see with dogs and cats in some variation and maybe in some subtleties more than others. I think they're all there for all animals, to be honest. It's just, do we take the time to, like, if you think about an ant, when's the last time we really spent a lot of time and really put a lot of investment into an ant? But maybe if we did, we could train them to do a whole variety of things, and maybe there would be a relationship that formed. As silly as that sounds, I'm saying maybe that's the difference.
Well, of course, I don't love my dog for his ability or lack thereof to train. And I use those words very purposeful because I feel very successful in training him in some things, and other things I feel like I'm failing miserably at training him in. But that's an interesting thought to me, is that then the question for me arises, is it more about us as human beings than it is about the animals? Is it more about us putting personality on our dogs? Is it more about us saying, hey, my little Cooper is a strong-willed, hard-headed puppy, And that's my emotion that I'm putting on him. Or I don't know. Yes, my very good friend as a child was in love with that snake and could swear up and down that that snake knew her and was excited to see her. And I didn't see any of that. I saw a snake. You know what I mean?
I know.
Like,
I know.
And that's not even to dislike snake owners. That's cool. It's your thing. I'm cool with that. I like dogs. It's good. But I don't see intention with snakes like with dogs. And maybe part of that is because dogs isn't one of the big differences between like reptiles and mammals is that there's some care from the parent. You know what I mean? Like that there's some growing up process and some care required. Whereas a snake lays an egg hatches, baby snake goes its own way, and mama snake goes its own way too. You know what I mean? Like there's no connection even to other animals of their own species.
Yeah, and I honestly can't speak into that. I think that's a very interesting concept to think about. I do know that in, humans in the mammal space, humans are the human offspring are the ones that are the most helpless for the longest. Even, any other animal, really, either they're born fully functional, ready to go, or as a baby, they grow really quickly into something that they can take care of themselves. I think in puppies, it's what you're born and like weeks later, the puppy can actually be off on its own, where a human child, it takes years to get them to a point where they can start functioning. So other than that, I don't know.
I was thinking of myself at 26.
Yeah, I was like, other than I don't know. But trying to come back to the question, you said something earlier, which was, do you really care? And I hear the spirit of why you said that. It wasn't like you were being, do I care? Why do we care? There's a lot of people that I've talked to that 100% believe that their animals will be there in the afterlife. So their soul lives on. So, they believe that their soul will carry on into eternity, and all of their animals and pets that they've had in life will also be there. And that's a point that I'm like, I question. I'm like, I don't know if that's really the intention of animals. I kind of am in the camp of enjoy them while they're here, because they're here to kind of be part of our lives. In some places, animals serve us very well. And then I think they're gone. And I wish I'm wrong, and I hope I am wrong, because it'd be great to see some of my childhood pets, up in heaven or the afterlife after I'm gone. But there's part of me that just says, is that consciousness, or is that a soul? And, this is a very touchy conversation to have, because I'm hearing all these other individuals that I've had conversations with throughout my life. And I remember my parents had a friend that said, if you ever doubt if an animal or a dog lacks a soul, look into their eyes. Because you can tell there's something in there. There's something back behind there, rather than just black orbs of nothingness. You can see who they are. You can see their traits. And, they're full of personality. But is that just, again, is that what we're projecting on them? Like we look into them with all the fondness and the memories, and we resonate back what we're putting on them? I don't know. We also had somebody from our Facebook post that actually responded. His name is Joshua, and it actually touches on consciousness. So I'm going to go ahead and read Joshua's comment. He goes, I think consciousness is the soul, and it has pervaded every living thing since the beginning of life. The thing about the soul is that we're all observing our experiences through the same one.
That includes snakes and spiders.
That includes snakes and spiders. As much as I would argue and say it doesn't, it includes snakes and spiders.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I guess that's an interesting thought too. I guess I hope that if when I die, my soul lives on, I certainly hope that my animals get to come along with me for the ride. And I also know that sometimes it makes me feel better to think that way. You know what I mean? Like, to think, oh, gone for now. Or, you know what I mean? That, like, to imagine that Murphy and Ozzy are hanging out together. Like, they would never get along. But you know what I'm saying? So I guess in that, here's what I'm really thankful for. I'm really thankful that this topic, or the answer to this, is not hinging on something for me long term. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm grateful that I can have those thoughts and I can have those feelings and think that, wouldn't it be cool, whether it's true or not? And that's okay. I can have those feelings and I can have those thoughts. And if it's not true, that's okay too. You know what I mean? That it doesn't have to negatively affect where I'm at. So I guess I'm grateful in that way. I do know that the animals that I have had, especially, these last four pets of mine, they have brought so much more than I could possibly feel like I gave them. You know what I mean? I feel like all of them came to me in a space that I needed them. When we got, okay, so you've all been here for the ride with Cooper, so I'm not even going to talk about Cooper. But Charlie is the little dog that he was my dog for about 5 minutes, and my daughter completely, my goodness, my daughter and that dog just connected in a real way. And that came at a time right after we got our own apartment, and that dog saw my daughter through some really tough times in life and through some difficult relationship stuff, through some difficult family things. And sometimes I wonder if my daughter would be here if it wasn't for that dog. You know what I'm saying? Before that was Murphy, and Murphy came to me right around the time that we had a foster kiddo that I thought we were going to be able to adopt, that reunified with their family. And that was such a bittersweet thing. Like, I was so excited that the family was able to achieve reunification and get to that space. But it was also super heartbreaking because I know that meant a disconnect from me. And so, we got this puppy and it filled the gap. It really helped me heal and get through that and continue fostering until I was able to find my forever babies. And before that was Ozzy. And man, you remember Ozzy because that was a long time ago. And Ozzy saw me through some really big changes in life, moving from, the town that we grew up in together into a whole huge, in my perception at the time, massive metropolis, right? With no friends and no relationships. And then through going away to college and coming back and losing my mom. And, there were so many things that Ozzy was there through that I don't know how I would have gotten through without it. So part of me is I think part of me was like, why I don't care. I don't care if they're, I'm going to give everything I can for these adorable little babies that gave me so much, my life would look a lot different if it wasn't for those, for my pets, Yeah,
I do. And I actually brought a counterpoint to my own argument because I didn't know if you would have one. So I have another side of this equation to kind of think about. Wait,
were you prepping for my lack of yes. ability to go through? I don't even know what I'm saying.
Yes. Well,
you're prepared for my
because I know you well enough that I think I kind of sense that you would be like, it doesn't matter. I love my pets. They're here. If they're with me beyond, wonderful. If not, okay. But I kind of got that sense from you. So I came prepared. So here's my one counterpart to my own. And this is, I struggle. So this is me with my internal struggling, having my conversation to myself. Welcome everyone just to listening to my own thoughts. So I'm in the, it is so weird, but this, again, that is me. Let my freak flag fly. Here it is. So here's where I'm at. I'm in the camp of, I personally do not believe that animals have souls. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But here's the one thing that I struggle with. So as I've said on here a few times, and Jamie, I love the paranormal. Absolutely love the paranormal. It's super interesting. I listen to the paranormal podcasts. I watch paranormal shows. I'm all about all the evidence. I'm like, yeah, let's see the evidence. And so it's weird that I have this stance because the one thing that gnaws on me, because I also believe in ghosts, and I have a whole reasoning of where ghosts come from. We can get into that a little bit later, but I believe in ghosts. I believe there's ghosts that walk this planet. Maybe the hauntings look a little bit different, but they're here. So here's where I'm stuck. So I believe that there's ghosts of people, and then you start watching these shows, and I'm all about, yeah, look at that video of that ghost. That chair moved on its own. Oh, look, they caught an apparition. Guess what's with human apparitions every so often? Every once in a while, guess what you'll see a ghost of? A dog, a cat, an animal. So I'm sitting here battling with myself to be like, hold on now. So the paranormal, the ghosts, that you can kind of see and understand. And for people, I do. But then how do I rationalize in my brain if you're seeing the same evidence that you're using to prove that ghosts exist, and then there's a ghost of a dog? How do you justify that in your mind, that then ghosts, or that dogs and cats and animals don't have a soul that can live on after death?
Well, Malin, congratulations. You are right and wrong all at the same time. That's amazing.
Well, what that means is, one way or the other, I am correct. It's just a matter of which side of the aisle is true. But, that's some of the things that I struggle through. And I kind of, when I try to formulate my opinions, I try to look at them, I try to think in well-rounded ways. And this is one that I get stuck on. I'm like, if I'm putting merit and belief into the things that I'm seeing from human ghosts and hauntings and evidence that of, voice phenomenon, whatever it is, when that same evidence shows that there are animals that are coming back from the beyond, how can I just so quickly be like, no, that's not true? Because I find myself doing that, Jamie. So there you go.
Well, I was going to say, this is not a surprise to me at all, but at the same time, you're right. How can you dismiss one and not the other? But, another interesting thing as we talk about like all living things, right? Do all living things have souls? Do only some living things have souls? That's another thought I have too, is like, why would some have souls and some not?
Just a second.
But
just a second.
What about,
can you give me because all I'm thinking of is animals and people. Like, what other thing are you thinking of that is living that we haven't covered? I'm just curious.
Well, thanks for asking the question I was about to answer. It's plants, right? Like, so I know you give me this weird look, but listen, hear me out. If you do, there's studies, there are people who have plants that they just simply water, fertilize, put in the sun, take out of the sun, whatever, right? And there are people who talk to their plants. And there have been studies that show that plants that are talked to grow better, that they're loved more. So,
okay. Just a second.
Is it all living things?
Okay, so I'm going to put a firm no to that. No, it's not all living things. But I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think, from a plant perspective, do you think that it is more probable that from the carbon dioxide that you're breathing out while you're talking is hitting the plant more than the words you're saying to the plant? So is it the physical?
That's an interesting thought. I would hope that those studies, because, okay, I'll be super honest. I have no idea where these studies are. I did read something a long time ago. Okay. So I have no hard evidence to be like, well, Harvard University says, because I don't. But, I would hope that those studies would have taken that into account, right? Like maybe this group of plants I talked to from 10 feet away, and this group of plants I whispered in their ear. I don't know. But for me, and this is kind of where my point is coming, it is driving home really, is that it's like about me, right? It's about how I choose to make connection with living things. And so I had a plant. I called him Henry. I talked to Henry regularly before I got Charlie. So I had my apartment. My kids were in bed at 8:00 at night, and I'm in my apartment all by myself with nothing to do. And so I do dishes and talk to Henry. And this was about the time that I had read this study, like, oh, well, that's going to make Henry strong and grow well, right? I don't know if Henry grew anymore, right? But what it did do, stop laughing at me. What it did do, though, is like, it was kind of like, okay, this is probably way more extreme, but it makes me think of like Wilson on, you know what I'm talking about?
Volleyball?
Yes.
Like, Jamie.
He was creating connection, right? And I think that there are people who can create connection with their plants. It's something you spend a lot of time on. It's something you nurture and you water. And I think that's cool too. You know what I'm saying? Do I think my house plant? Okay, I'll be super honest. I have no house plants because I kill them all. I'm terrible with plants. But I don't know if plants, I don't think plants have souls. But I'm just saying, maybe it is more in the eye of the beholder than anything else.
So yeah, in that example, I can understand where, to me, that's a perfect example of us projecting onto an item, right? Like a plant, or maybe this goes back to us projecting those personality traits onto even our, dogs and cats, that kind of thing. Inanimate objects, when I was a kid, there were some things that, I had that I just absolutely loved, favorite toy, and I put personality on them. They didn't attribute those themselves. So I think that kind of falls into that category, and I can understand that. This did remind me, as I do a little segue for a second. I did hear about, there's a group of individuals that speak positive intentions into their water. Have you heard about this?
I feel like, well, you and I talked about moon water with Susan.
So that's the positive energy of the moon, so they can drink it. There is a subset of people, and I feel like this kind of falls into that same category of talking to plants or putting some of that. I think you've said this before. You find what you're looking for. So there's a group of people that they think that if you speak positive intentions into water and then you ingest the water, that you're filling your body with positivity. I feel like this kind of conversation with like Wilson and plants kind of fall into that same category of, I think that's us projecting more so than there probably is a little bit of validity to it. But that's just my own personal opinion.
Well, of course, I also think I literally just watched Castaway with Doyle like last weekend.
Such a good movie.
So it is a good movie. It is a good movie. But it's interesting to me because I do feel like, and kind of like we talked about last week when we talked about, social invisibility, I do think that we are made for connection, right? And so I think we will find that connection wherever we need to. And it might be in our animals. It might be with Henry the plant, and it could be with a volleyball with a tuft of weeds sticking out of the top. But we need connection. We need to be able to connect with other living things. So I don't know. I guess I'm in a space where I'm like, I don't know if I really care. If it fulfills that need for you, if you're in a space and you need connection and Henry the plant is what you have to connect with and it's meaningful to you and it brings joy to you and it adds to your life, then more power to you. I don't mean that in a judgy way. That sounded really judgy, but because Henry the plant was really important to me for a while too. Then I killed him. I'm terrible with houseplants. I'm not going to lie. So I feel terrible about Henry and every other one I've had before and since. But
Henry was my confidant, my friend, and I murdered him. But that's another day.
It's terrible. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, Henry.
So I kind of knew that asking this question, we were going to go down a couple different places. So I appreciate the conversation. And again, I think I can even say I have my opinion about it. But at the end of the day, does it matter? I don't know. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I do think it's kind of an interesting conversation. And if we had somebody here who had the perspective that they are very much sure and confident that yes, animals have souls, they're going to live well beyond, after they die, they continue on, their existence continues, they will be with us in eternity. I think that would have been a very unique perspective to have on here. But I think for this conversation, I think we both kind of see it the same kind of way, even though we may be coming at it from different directions. I think ultimately we're both like, yes, no.
Well, and I think we all have those people in our lives, right? We all have those people that are like absolute in that their animal has a soul and understands them in a way that, maybe even other people can't understand them. You know what I'm saying? And I absolutely validate that because I do see that like with my daughter and her dog. And for me and Ozzy back in the day, she was there for me when I felt like no one else was. And so I in no way is this to diminish any of that. And if that for you is a tarantula, more power to you. I will let you baby all of the tarantulas because I don't want any of those in my house either. But yeah, I think that's a big piece of this.
I just think another small little segue here. I think it's very interesting that I'm going to use myself as an example. I am very comfortable in even saying like animals, dogs, cats, they have personality and they have traits that are desirable. And yet I can, in the same breath, go to the animals that I really don't like and be like, but those animals are excluded. Like, it's so easy for human nature to do that. I think it's so fun. Like, it's so funny.
It's super simple. Why, Malin? Here's why. That's why we don't like them. Okay, maybe not. That's just a thought. But I don't like tarantulas because they don't have personality. That's the whole reason.
So wait a minute.
It has nothing to do with eating my face.
So if tarantulas would cuddle like a dog, sleep in the like nook of your arm or next to your face on your pillow or wherever they sleep, let's just pretend they sleep on your bed instead of a crate. You're telling me that if a tarantula could show the same traits, that you would be cool if you woke up and a tarantula was snuggling your face or sitting by your head or between your feet at the foot of the bed? Like, you would be like, oh, cool.
No, I was just trying to make a point.
Because I was like,
even as a dog person, I will also be the first to tell you that I think that dogs make better companions than cats, right?
Now you're on to something. Now you're onto a debate.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, and that's, if you think about, like, dogs are companion animals, right? It was funny because I was talking to my brother. My sister got a cat, like a kitten, just before I got a dog, right? Before I got Cooper. And I went over to the house and I called my brother and I was like, oh, you should see this kitten. She's really sweet. She's cute. We were playing. And he was like, no, she was hunting. And I was like, what? And he's like, Jamie, all of the play that animal did was actually hunting. And he went through it and he was like, it wasn't like, let me go get the ball and bring it back to you. See, aren't I a happy boy? It was, I'm going to claw and attack and murder the stuffed mouse at the end of that stick. Right. And I was like, oh, and so I have cat people in my family. It's fine. Cats are cool. I've owned cats. I've loved my cats. But, I think that animals have every different animal has a different perspective to bring us. You know what I mean? Like a different quality that might add to us. So I'm not dissing on cat people.
That's not what I heard. I heard you definitely are dissing on cat people. So I'm sorry. I own a cat. It was so funny because I know when I went to college and then you moved back, we got cats together basically because I never had a cat before. And that was because my brother was deathly allergic. So the first thing that I wanted to do to buy an animal was I wanted to get a cat. I've never owned one. And I remember I had this preconceived notion of what a cat I want. Like I was thinking Garfield. I wanted fat, lazy. I wanted laying around. I didn't want it to do a lot. Like that's all I cared for because that's all I knew.
Malin, I remember specifically your words were, when that cat jumps off the counter, I want you to feel it 3 blocks away.
Oh, yeah. I want things to vibrate in the house. Like, I want you to feel there's a cat. Like, that's what I wanted. And it's so funny because in this instance, we went together and we picked our cats out and there was an orange tabby in there. And I went to... This cat came right up to the cage and I kind of moved it out of the way and I was going for the tabby. And I remember you were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I want to get the cat. And you're like, but this cat chose you. And I'm like, what? And you're like, this cat came to you. Like this cat, you have to pick this cat. And it was this gray looking nothing like I've ever wanted, right? Nothing. And I remember you guilted me and I was like, fine. And I did. I was like, I'll take this one, I guess. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with a gray cat? Like this cat is... That cat and I've got to just be honest. I named her Yoda. She was the coolest freaking cat ever.
She was the coolest cat.
When she grew, that her personality and temperament, I mean, she was great. She was as close to a dog. And when you compare her to a dog, she's not the same, but she had a very sweet temperament. She just kind of sat around. She let you cuddle, pet, all the fun stuff. But the coolest thing about her is as she got older, her fur went from gray to she was a tortoiseshell. And her white part or her gray part would turn to a peachy pink color in the spring and the fall. And I don't know why it would change in those seasons, but I remember just thinking, wow, this cat really turned into something really cool. And it was all because this cat chose me. And after years of having having Yoda as a pet, I'm very glad she did. And I look back and I'm glad you stuck your nose where it didn't belong and you guilted me in taking this cat because it was the better choice. So.
Well, and the cat distribution system brought you Yoda through no choice of your own, and brought to me Demon Cat. So, I mean, I don't know how that happened. Supposedly they were litter mates.
You're not talking about Molly. Molly was good.
Are you kidding me? She was okay. Well, I might have fried her brain with catnip or something, but that was so bad. That was so bad. How? Right. I don't know.
Well, thanks for having this kind of jokey kind of conversation. I think it's interesting. I'm sure hopefully people that are listening weigh in. Do pets have souls? Does it matter? Yes, no. Do certain animals have souls over others? Are you a dog person or a cat person? I'd love to hear all of it.
Well, and one of the best ways you can weigh in is our new Patreon. We have a Patreon. If you missed the last episode, we just want to throw it out there and remind you that we did start a Patreon page, and we have some different perks that come with different levels of membership. So if you'd like to participate a little more in the conversation, you're more than welcome to join us there.
And we promise this will be one of the last times we bring it up. But yes, just a little reminder because it is brand new. So go take a look if you haven't already. All right, Jamie, I think that's it. I don't have anything else. I appreciated the kind of lightheartedness and conversation. It had a little bit of depth to it, but now everybody knows that I struggle with my own thoughts and opinions sometimes. So there's that.
You are not of one mind all the time, but it's good.
All the time.
Yes.
Look at that little backhanded compliment. Thank you so much.
What? That's not a bad thing. Okay, I did not intend that in a bad way. So namaste, my friend. No ill intentions. I will talk to you nicely like I did Henry. So
which you ultimately killed. Okay, great.
Okay, fair. No, thank you everyone for joining us today on Roundtable Mindset. We hope you come back again next week with a whole new exciting or thought-provoking or controversial subject. We'll let you know what's coming. So we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time we're here around the roundtable.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. This podcast was recorded and edited by Jamie and Malin. Music by Famous Cats. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, please email us at roundtablemindset@gmail.com. Text or call us at 402-819-8999 or join the conversation on Facebook at Roundtable Mindset Podcast.
And never miss a new episode by making sure you like, subscribe, and share wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for being our guest today. See you next time at the Roundtable. And remember, your opinions and perspectives matter and are appreciated, but might not always be shared by others, and that's okay.